Morning guys, welcome back to Kuta here on the island of Bali, Kuta beach area, whatever, near the airport. I'm going to summarize my expenses in Indonesia over the past month. I averaged around 20 Canadian dollars, 15 US dollars, like 13 euros or so per day. And I did a few expensive activities. I went to Bromo, rented scooters on 3 occasions, went to Mount Ijen, did a tour that was expensive, but for the most part I just do some of the cheapest things available. Renting a scooter, in my opinion, is one of the best ways of really exploring the country. It's very inexpensive. Driving is relatively easy. I mean, it can be hectic in the big cities, but overall I'd say it's pretty easy, pretty safe driving scooters. So great way to see the country. I did that on 3 occasions. You're usually paying around 6 to 8 US dollars per day, even less here on Bali. I've heard, actually, what did I pay? I paid 70K for a day on Bali, which is like less than 5 US dollars for 24 hours with a scooter. So it can be pretty cheap, and fuel is pretty cheap as well. Food, man, you can always get a meal for a US dollar or less. My go-to price is 10,000. That's what I always try to get, and you can get that almost everywhere, which is 66 US cents basically, for like bakso ayam, mie ayam, mie goreng, nasi goreng, like all the basic dishes like fried noodles, fried rice, stuff like that, chicken. Yeah, less than $1 easily per meal. Accommodation, if you're staying in hostels like I usually do, oh, it looks like I'm coming to a resort here. For accommodation, if you're staying at hostels, it's also very inexpensive. You can usually pay like in the 4 to 8 US dollar range for a dormitory bed, sometimes even less. I think I actually paid like closer to 3 US dollars for a night's accommodation in a decent dormitory. For nicer places, 6, 7, 8 US dollars, you can almost always find a bed. Jakarta is a little bit more expensive, mind you. You're maybe paying 7, 8, 9 US dollars a night for your average dormitory bed in a hostel. Quite a bit more for a private room. Here on Bali, I got a private room and like 2 really nice places back to back for 7 or so US dollars for my own room, surrounded by garden, really beautiful places. Transportation is a little bit more expensive. That's where they'll get you. They do have trains and they're incredibly convenient. The trains, at least on the island of Java, basically the stations are like in the centers of cities. So if you want to stay somewhere in the center, which most tourists probably do, that's where the points of interest usually are, then it's very convenient. You just take the train from one city to the next, you get off, you stay near the train station. That's what I did from Jakarta to Yogyakarta, Yogyakarta to Malang, and then Malang to Ketapang, basically just traversing the island of Java. The first 2 trains I took were 250,000, which is like 15, 16, 17 US dollars for 7 or 8 hour train rides, which is like maybe a bit more than 2 US dollars per hour of travel time, which is really not expensive, but it's not nearly as inexpensive as some countries. And the trains are fine, no real complaints, but they're pretty basic. They're nothing special. I was in economy class, of course. I didn't see what the executive class or whatever it's called looked like. It was fine though for night trains. Also some train routes only run at night, so you have no option other than to take a night train. I think that's what I did from Yogyakarta to Malang. But overall, yeah, trains are not that bad. From what I've seen though, especially only on Bali basically, ground transportation is very expensive. The buses were really expensive, so I avoided them at all costs. That's why I hitchhiked all around Bali, which was possible. Not the easiest place to hitchhike, but definitely possible. Buses though, they were looking, as a tourist, you're going to be asked for like close to $10 per hour of travel time. Yeah, and the tours and stuff, they can be pretty expensive. Personally, I'm not a tour type of person. I did the one to go at Ijen volcano. It's a beautiful place. You get to see this cool blue lava. It's a really beautiful crater lake in there. You get to watch the sunrise from up around the crater rim. Very, very cool, but there had to be over 1,000 tourists. You're just stuck in these huge crowds of people. Everyone taking photos. You have to elbow your way to the front of the crowd to get a photo of the blue flames, unless you get there before. If I would do it again, I would 100% go on my own. You do not need a guide. The trail is so easy to follow. I'm just not a tourist person. I don't like the big crowds. If you can find a way to avoid it, I would do it. And it would be cheaper, and you have the freedom to come and go as you please and move where you want. You don't have guides telling you where to go and when. So From what I've seen, tours are, you know, probably average price, but not that cheap. So if you're looking to travel in Indonesia on a budget, I would say avoid the tours as much as you can. So yeah, basically that's it. Over what else did I spend? Yeah, alcohol is not cheap. From what I've seen in stores and stuff, you're looking at around $2 a beer, which is like more than a lot of Western countries, definitely more than Europe, and also more than North America. So alcohol is not cheap. I haven't been partying, so that wasn't a part of my budget. Actually in Jakarta, when Bratza was still here, we had a couple beers while playing pool one night, and it was like 50K for a half-liter beer, which is like over $3 US for a regular sized beer in a hostel, which is pricey in my opinion. Another thing, if you're planning on exchanging money in Indonesia, do yourself a favor and try to avoid doing it in any of the really touristy areas, especially here in Kuta Beach, because the exchange rate is much worse. I checked, there's currency exchange offices absolutely everywhere. I saw hundreds yesterday, and every single one, you're losing 3 to 5% of the value of your money depending on what currency you're exchanging. I actually checked all of them. The US dollar was the least bad. You're losing about 3% to the exchange rate, but currencies like the Canadian dollar, Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar, Singapore dollar, Swiss franc, you're losing around 5% on the exchange rate. To give context, I exchanged money in Jakarta and I lost about 0.3% of the value of my money to the exchange rate. I was getting almost the exact real exchange rate. Even an ATM won't give you that good of an exchange rate if you withdraw money. Plus you don't pay fees and all that, ATM fees. So yeah, try to avoid exchanging money in the Kuta Beach area if you can. Maybe elsewhere in Denpasar you would get a better rate, I'm not sure. But if you're passing through Java first, I recommend exchanging money there. Indonesia is completely full of their convenience store chains. They don't have the 7-Eleven like in many countries, but they've got the Indomart, the Alfamart, among a few other convenience store chains. There are definitely thousands, maybe tens of thousands of Indomarts in this country. It's incredible. They're absolutely everywhere, and they have some inexpensive things like these little cold coffees, like lattes in a plastic container for 3,000 rupiah, which is 20 US cents. They're really good. They also have chocolate milk in the same size container for the same price, 20 US cents. So I found myself having 1 or 2 of those every day basically. I like stopping in. They're air conditioned. They're usually pretty nice and clean and modern, and they've got some cheap cold drinks that I enjoy very much. So that was one of my go-tos, but it's basically a negligible expense, 20 cents per drink. Most of the accommodations that I stayed at, the hostels that I stayed at, had unlimited free coffee, tea, and filtered water all day, which is big time, so you don't end up spending money on stuff like water, which is essential obviously. If you have to buy water, if you don't have it included at your accommodation, the 1.5 liter bottles, the big bottles, are available in all the shops for somewhere in the 4 to 8,000 rupiah range, which is like 30 to 60 or so cents US for a pretty big bottle. Like you might need 2 for a whole day, so it's not very expensive. The thing about SIM cards in Indonesia is they have to register your SIM card or something when you buy it so that you can actually use it in the country. I'm not sure exactly what the details of that are, but I had to pay 200,000 rupiah, which is like 13-14 US dollars for my SIM card, and a data plan that included 7 gigs of data for 1 month, which is all that I used. I used almost exactly those 7 gigs over the month. Usually there's Wi-Fi included at accommodations. I think every accommodation I've stayed at had Wi-Fi, so I use that when I can and use my data when I don't have Wi-Fi. So yeah, it was about 13 US dollars for my SIM card and data for a month. And once you have your SIM card and once it's registered, you can add data for almost nothing. I saw all these plans online, and for like $1 or $2 you can get multiple more gigs of data. It's virtually nothing once you have the SIM card and it's registered. So even though public transportation seems to be very expensive, the trains, I mean, are reasonable, but especially on Bali, all of the buses are going to ask you for quite a lot of money, like 5 to 10 US dollars per hour of travel time. Way more than most countries, inexpensive countries, I should say. However, they do have Grab and Gojek, which is like Uber basically. You just order a ride on your phone, you see the price, it's a fixed price, and a fixed pickup point where your location is, and a fixed drop-off point, and it's very inexpensive. I only took a couple. I don't usually need them myself, and you're looking at like you know, $2, $3, $4 or something to cross town for like a 15, 20, 30-minute ride or whatever. Very, very inexpensive, very convenient, because you don't have to hassle. You don't even have to speak the language. You don't have to speak to anyone. You do it all on your phone through the app. You order the ride, and you get dropped off where you want to go. Guys, check out the kind of place you can stay if you've got money here in Kuta Beach on Bali. This resort, I noticed it yesterday when I walked by, it looks absolutely spectacular. It looks so beautiful. The pool, the manicured lawn, the lawn chairs under trees in some areas, the palm trees everywhere. It looks really nice. I checked on Booking out of curiosity, or on, I think on Google Maps I checked, and it was showing a little over $1 million rupiah per night for a room here, which is like, it was about 100 Canadian dollars, like 75 US, 70 euros maybe for a night at this place. So there's extreme luxury to be had for what seems like a pretty reasonable price. Anyway, that about wraps it up. So yeah, I averaged about 20 Canadian dollars per day, 15 US dollars, 13 or so euros per day over a month in Indonesia. Only the islands of Java and Bali. I had a much better time on Java because it's less touristy and a lot more to see, I would say. Yeah, I'm just not so into the extremely touristy places. Bali is still very cool. It's, you know, there's something for everyone, to each their own. Some people will probably prefer Bali. It is what it is. Anyways, that about wraps up my time here in Indonesia for this year. I have a feeling I'm going to be back to this country pretty soon and try to travel a different part of it, different island. Sumatra and Sulawesi both seem very appealing to me. Anyways, thanks for following me here to Indonesia. That's it. That's a wrap. I'll see you guys in the next country. See you soon.